here is one system I know very little about. I've delved into the library, but never really stuck around. Prices have always been too high for both the hardware and the software, so it's a bit of a turnoff for some people, including me. Well, TerraOnion have set out to ease the burden on your pockets with an all-in-one Everdrive they call Super SD System 3. Not only does it load up HuCards, it also lets you play any of the Super CD games. This is a first for the console and something the community welcomes with open arms. But some people wonder why make a device like this when there's emulation. My answer? Running off original hardware increases gameplay accuracy. So, thanks to my buddy D-Engine over on Twitter for letting me borrow his PC Engine, an OSSC, 2 controllers, a SCART cable, and what I'm going to be showing off today, the Super SD System 3. Seriously, Jose, thanks man, you're fucking crazy, dude. Inside the box, underneath the manual, wrapped in this bubble is the beautiful device, and it's a simple little add-on, but honestly, this manual's pretty informative too. The good thing about this is, honestly, it's a plug-and-play device, and it slides right onto the back of your PC Engine, Supergrafx, or Turbografx console. On the back, there's only one output. Thankfully, it's the best one, a Sega Model 2 MiniDIN out, which supports both stereo and full RGB. This means your Sega Model 2 composite cable, your Sega Model 2 SCART cable, and your Sega Model 2 HD Retrovision cables are all compatible. On the right-hand side, we have the micro SD slot, and that's really it. It's a simple design with the sole purpose of bringing the full library to any fan of the console. The SD System 3 only reads certain formats. It's best to ensure that you're using either FAT32 or exFAT. The device can read micro SD cards up to 256 gigabytes. That's far more space than you'll ever need though. Adding games is simple. All we need to do is create 3 folders, one for HuCards, one for Super CD games, and if you own it, one for Supergrafx games. Since this has System Card 3 and the arcade cards built onto the board, there'll be no need to purchase these and HuCards will work right out of the box. However, the Super CD games do require a BIOS file to launch. This area is still very gray, and TerraOnion can't technically include it, so you'll need to either dump it yourself or find them online. Upon firing up the console, we are greeted by a simple splash screen displaying the name. The SD System 3 takes a few seconds to access the folder with Super CD games in it. While the device is reading the SD card, you can hear a slight buzzing sound while it's accessing the files. Now, it's not really too noticeable, primarily in really quiet parts of games, but once things get going, you don't even notice it. On the other hand, reading the HuCard folder loads in a flash, despite the fact it has a ton of files in it. Pressing the 2 button on the controller will pull up the options menu with some important toggle switches. The first one, I don't like. It makes so the system boots up to the last game that you played. The first thing on the launch menu is to load the last game, so there's really no point in leaving it on. If you do leave it on, this next option is for you, and those who don't want to constantly stand up to reset the system. Holding the start button and then pressing and holding the select button will trigger the SD System 3 menu in-game. When activated though, they do warn you that it may cause some effects on games. More on that in a bit though. The next switch will allow you to skip the press run screen at the start of CD games. That's pretty straightforward, I leave it turned off, I'm not that lazy. Then we come to the lifesaver, per game saves. If you click this option and leave it on, every game will have a separate save on the SD card. This really helps to eliminate that limited space for save games. Then we have the Enable Arcade card. I just left this on as it didn't cause any problems with other games. And the final option will allow you to select which BIOS you want the Super CD to use. I just stuck with version 3.0 as it seemed to support everything I threw at it. Well, let's actually talk about the games now. select a HuCard from the menu and it loads up in a flash. Games look sharp thanks to this PC engine being modified to remove the jail bars that the consoles are known to have. They might still be there, but it's very faint and only showed on the title screen of Dragon Spirit. Using the HD Retrovision cables yields a very similar result. Some colors make the bars pop more than others. Speaking of Dragon Spirit, every time I went to load the game up, I'd come into this issue where it would just keep flashing at the main menu and I couldn't get past it, and that's where the in-game trigger on the Super SD System 3 was giving me problems. So once I turned off that in-game menu trigger, the problem went away. It was actually with another Namco game too, Yokai Dokushi. Same exact problem, I turned it off and it worked. So if you have that problem where the game loads the menu over and over, just turn the trigger off, or get triggered. But you don't want to hear about HuCards. Get to the damn CD games already. Well, I hear ya. I've played games I didn't even know about. When going into this, I wasn't very fond of the system's library. If I were to include all the CD titles with this device, well, now it's a very different story. There were a handful of problems though. Allow me to explain. Games like Cotton with gray backgrounds really displayed the diagonal lines across the screen. It happened with quite a few games. I'm sure the OSSC is cleaning it up a bit, though I'm not 100% sure on how to remedy it. Cutscenes from Ys 3 were all over the place. We see the vertical lines, we have diagonal lines, and some of the images are just clean as day, so your mileage may vary. I personally think the biggest offender here is the audio problem. Certain CD titles sound like their tone is cranked up. It threw me off a bit at first, but then I turned the volume on my TV down. Oh, I almost forgot about the occasional hang-up on the audio from time to time. This never broke gameplay, but it is worth mentioning. But again, this is hit or miss. Not all games have that cranked up issue. Soldier Blade was perfect, with no sort of distortion. And of course, they made sure Castlevania Rondo of Blood sounded nice. That game is a huge draw to the console for some people. It's also the first game I fired up myself when I got my hands on this. Although these problems did pop up, it's not a deal breaker for what the add-on offers. This is a high-end product though. Apparently TerraOnion know of the issue and are working on a firmware update for the future. I had spent a good amount of time with the SD System 3, a total of 4 hours capturing footage, 8 hours streaming, and I can't tell you how many just playing and enjoying the games. With that said, the Super CD audio thing never got under my skin. Take that as you may. So, is it worth $300? Well, this is second to none. Literally, there is no other product that does all of this. Aside from the actual hardware, you've got the arcade card on deck, the System 3.0 card. You can load any HuCard game, any Super CD game. You could load fan translations. You could load hacks, homebrews. You could load Supergrafx titles if you own a Supergrafx. The CD games have faster load times, separate saves for every game, and it's got a MiniDIN 9 out connection for modless RGB. And then we have the cons. Even though this console is modded, jail bars do crop up on certain colors, but not all the time. It's complicated for me to really tell what's going on here. Another problem was the slight buzzing sound that can be heard when reading CD games during silent parts. And then there was also the problem with the music being cranked up for other certain CD games. So, that's your pros and your cons, really. Like I said, my time spent was enjoyable. I also didn't have to pay for this. Not that would have soured things. In the end, this comes down to you. Special thanks to D-Engine over on Twitter. He literally gets nothing for this. He doesn't run a channel or anything. Jose just wanted my thoughts on the SSDS3, and he thought it would make for a good video. So if you found this useful, give him a thanks in the comments for me, will ya? And thanks to my supporters on Patreon. I still can't even believe there are people over there helping me out. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this as I said, and I'll catch you next time. Peace!